Right, it's time for a what am I sowing and growing video for May. We'll start with the growing bit, and most of the growing of the seedlings, not the mature plants, is going on in the greenhouse. Just look at my tours of the allotment and the kitchen garden, for example, to see what I'm actually growing outside. So it's getting pretty packed in here. I haven't got very much room. Seedling wise, what we've got down here, all the way down there, and all the way down there we've got the brassicas. So I'll just run through. We've got red cabbages, we've got some red cabbages outside as well. We've got some kales, Tuscan kales, the red kales, I can't remember what they're called now, scarlet, reflex kales, cadet kales, quite a nice selection of kales. They're going in the little pottage garden in the front garden pretty soon actually, probably, let's see, yeah, about a week's time I should think now, looking at the weather forecast. I've got some Brussels sprouts going on the allotment. I've got some calabrese going on the allotment. And then at this end I've got some Pentland Brig kale going in the kitchen garden, some more Brussels sprouts going in the kitchen garden, and lots of colettes going in the kitchen garden. I've got my first few colettes out now actually. I like to do one bed, basically about a quarter of my colettes early, so that we've got some to harvest in sort of December time, I guess, December, early January, and then the rest of the colettes come later on in the year. And that is almost it, apart from the cauliflowers. So we've just got a few purple cauliflowers to put on the allotment as well. In the middle here, I've got my second succession of tomatoes. These are the ones that are going in the polytunnel pretty soon now. I mean, actually, they're pretty much ready to go. They're a reasonable little size. These are tumblers. I've got a few different varieties here, but they're all looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with those. And then here we've got two examples of the peppers. So these are the peppers we started back in December, and these are the ones we started in February. I can see a pretty big difference between these two. But there's a bigger difference between these and these. So these are the ones that I potted on, and you can see, you know, quite a big difference in these big pots. And obviously they're put on really big roots now, hopefully, and they're well placed to start actually fruiting. And we've got a good fruit set now on most of these. So we didn't have much fruit set last week or a couple of weeks ago, but now all of them have got a fruit set, which is really nice to see. So these are just spares, just waiting for somewhere to put those. So down this side, oh, that's most of the seedlings. Up here on the top, I've got beetroot, more peppers, celeriac, celery, parsley, ochre, more celery, spare tomatoes, lettuces, turnips, second succession of turnips. Actually, we've got some outside in the kitchen garden, some basil, and see what else we've got. Oh, lots of different chard and some more beetroot. So quite a lot of stuff going on there. We've got some spinach outside, of course loads of spinach on the allotment as well, and lots of peas and things like that. So that's most of the stuff that's seedling wise we've got growing in here. In fact, I haven't really got any seedlings growing that aren't in the greenhouse this year, just because I've been lazy. So up here I've got my first succession of tomatoes. I've got really good fruit set on these now. So lovely huge trusses for the future, but as I say, more importantly, quite a lot of tomatoes growing. They're about that sort of size at the moment, so maybe a few weeks away probably from being full size, and we'll see how well they ripen this early in the year. And the strawberries are doing beautifully. I've had absolutely stacks of strawberries. I can't resist eating them, so there's not very many to show you, but I'll pop a little video clip up of the strawberries just so you can see them before I started eating them every day. In the corners we've got courgettes, actually these, yeah, ready for harvest down here. Not quite ready for harvest here, but they will be by the end of the week. First batch of French beans down there. First batch of outdoor or greenhouse cucumbers down there, but I've got some really nice cucumbers in the conservatory as well. The peas that were in here are outside. The apricots and peaches that were in here are also outside. So, I've got the yacon, which is just starting to break surface here. So that's it. That's me done for what I'm growing in May. So let's talk about what I'm sowing in May. And as always, this database that I'm looking at, you can see a version of it down below. And the version you see will be in sowing date order. I'm going to talk it through in order of type of veg. I've just done that the last few months and seems to work out really nicely. It's easier to follow when you see all the successions of a particular type of veg together. So first thing in May that I'm going to get sown is my salad onions. I've actually got loads of salad onions and a few shallots and things that still haven't been planted out on there on top of the wall. They're all growing really happily outside. And of course all my main crop, onions and shallots, are out as well in the beds. Next up I've got my purple sprouting broccoli. So I do 2 successions of 2 types of purple sprouting broccoli. I don't grow it for summer, but I do grow it for late winter and early spring and mid-spring. So basically February, March, April and just a little bit into May. And I'm doing 2 varieties. The early variety is Red Fire and the later variety is Claret. And I'll do another succession of those in June. Early June, and that just gives me a slightly more staggered harvest. Otherwise it all comes together and it's really frustrating. So next up is trying to think of things to grow after my onions. So my onions finish in early August, so it's what can I plant in gaps that I've left strategically in the onion bed in July, mid to late July, that won't get in the way of the onions because I've left the little gaps, but will then, as soon as the onions come out, grow and fill the bed. And I'm going to do graffiti cauliflower and Clapton cauliflower, and I'm also going to do maybe a few red cabbages and some Savoy cabbages and some calabrese. So I'll talk about those in a minute as well. So the red cabbages I'm doing are red Ladero and red drumhead, and they're in early May. Now some of those are going where that garlic is, so it's good timing. Sort of the middle of May. It gives me 6 weeks to bring those to maturity, which means I'm planting them out at the end of June, which is just after I've harvested my garlic. Garlic normally comes out towards the end of June for me. Another succession of sweet corn. I've done 1 succession already, which is growing quite nicely. I'll do 3 successions of sweet corn again because I don't like it all to come together. We generally only eat fresh food. We do freeze a little bit and dehydrate a little bit, but the vast majority of what we eat is fresh, so that's why we do a lot of successions. I've got 2 batches of French beans growing quite nicely. And I've just sown dwarf French beans to go in the polytunnel, which means because I've got quite a lot of beans, I leave my main crop beans a little bit later probably than some people. So I do mine on the 12th of May, be planting them out towards the beginning of June, at which time it's well above sort of 10 degrees centigrade at night, and that's just fine for beans. They don't sulk at that temperature, they sort of thrive and grow away nicely. And then I'm just clearing my winter spring lettuce beds, and in the place of those I'm putting Eskimo carrots, and I really like Eskimo. They stand in the ground really well, They don't tend to go to seed. I harvest them all the way through winter and spring up until about the middle to the end of April. And at that point this year I put my potatoes in after those. So then I've got a whole load of lettuces. I'll leave these for you to sort of look at the details of all the different varieties, but yeah, lots and lots of beautiful varieties of lettuce. I do a lot of ornamental lettuce planting. I've got a couple of beds now I'll just show you outside of little plants. I've suffered a bit in this cold weather, but hopefully now that it's warming up at night I should be a little bit happier. And that is it. So that is everything that I'm going to do in May. In a week or so's time I'll do a preview of what I'm going to do in June, and that will give me an opportunity to do an update of what's going on in the greenhouse, because a lot of this will have changed. There'll be nowhere near as many brassicas, and there'll be a lot of melons and squashes and courgettes and, you know, all those sorts of things. So winter squashes rather than courgettes. So if you want more details of everything, just go down in the description. You find a link to my ebook, you find a link to my weekly newsletter, and to this view on the database that I've just gone through. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.